So you guys either are here for either you guys saw my ad or somebody that you guys know, sent this to you. I sent this out to my past clients and I said, hey, anybody that's, I've helped out with one of these down payment assistance programs, please send this to somebody that you know that's been thinking about buying a house. I personally myself have used down payment assistance when I purchased my first house. Before I became a real estate agent back in 2015, I had good credit, but for one reason or another, I was just having a hard time saving up for my down payment. And it happens, but at the end of the day, there's options available. And that's exactly what this webinar is for. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that you guys know what options you have. Now, you're either going to fall into one or two categories. You're going to be in the category where you're ready to go and you can start buying a house tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Your credit's solid, your debt to income is solid. Or you'll be in the category where you might need to work on your credit. You might be in the category where you might need to work on your job history. And we're going to go over all of that today. What your job history needs to look like, what your credit needs to look like, what your debt to income qualification amount is going to be based off your income. I'll help you guys calculate that. So that way, after this meeting, you guys are going to have a ton of information to use. And hopefully at the end of this meeting, you guys are going to say, cool, you know what? This guy sounds like a straight shooter. Let's go ahead and submit an application. So first, let's go over the benefits of the down payment assistance programs. Now, the down payment assistance programs have been around for years. I mean, I'm talking like 10 years. A lot of lenders don't offer them for a lot of different reasons. They're more work. Some lenders don't get paid as much if they offer these down payment assistance programs. It could be a lot of different reasons. But my lenders and the lenders that I work with know that in order to gain my business, they need to offer all these options and opportunities to my clients. And I've been very fortunate to be able to help out a lot of families. I've built my business off of helping first-time home buyers purchase their homes. And I would say not quite 50%, but a good solid 40% of my clients that have purchased houses in the last 4 years have taken advantage of these programs. I looked at all my transactions from the last year. So I helped out a total of 45 families last year. Of those 45 families, 20 used the down payment assistance programs. This year, I've helped out 12 families so far. And out of those 12, 9 have used the down payment assistance programs. So as you can see, that's definitely where my focus is. I want to make sure that I'm helping out a lot of families and I want to make sure that everybody's getting taken care of because this is something that was offered to me when I was a first-time home buyer myself. And as somebody that's taking advantage of these programs, trust me, at first you're going to get that vibe. It's like, whoa, this is too good to be true. How is it that this is possible that, people are just given free money? And I'll explain that to you. I'll kind of explain the ins and outs and the way that lenders are able to offer these awesome programs. First and foremost, interest rates are really low right now. Historically speaking, rates are the lowest they've ever been, which is great if you've been wanting to buy a house, because at the end of the day, it's going to determine your monthly payment. Now, yeah, of course, houses have gone up the last couple of years, but that's just what the market is supposed to do. One of the biggest questions that I get right now, especially during these times, and that's how this Zoom call actually came about, was obviously the COVID-19 stuff that's going on. I'm not oblivious to that. I would say every other consultation that I have, that question gets asked. And what I can tell you is that right now in Arizona, the market has not slowed down. Houses are still selling with multiple offers. We are the #1 city and state that people are moving into from across the country. So what I hope I can give you today is information that you can use to make a educated decision, a good solid decision for you and your family, to see if buying a house in the short term is going to be that's the best thing for you guys. Interest rates right now. So there's a couple different options. When you're talking about down payment assistance, you're going to have different tiers that you can take. And depending on how much down payment assistance you get, you're going to get a lower tier. There's a tier that's as low as a 3.5% down payment, which is crazy to think that interest rates are that low for down payment assistance. When I purchased my house, they're like 5.5%. So it's definitely something that is worth taking advantage of. So let me guys, let's see here. Cool. So let me show you guys. The first thing I'm going to show you, actually, I kind of set this up for you guys, is I wanted to show you some of the clients and price points, because that's one of the biggest things that clients have questions with, is what price points. And I'll show you the different price points that I've been able to help clients out in the last year with these down payment assistance programs. This was a $205,000 house. Oh, give me a second here. There it is. $205,000 house, 310,000, 175, 225, 230, 215, 140, 240, 159, 220, 230. I mean, 340. So you guys can get into nice, decent price ranges. I mean, look at that one, 299, right? That's one of the biggest questions that I get asked. Like, is this something that would affect me if I make too much money? If you make over $105,000 a year combined income, so if it's you purchasing a house with somebody else, these programs that I'm going to talk about today won't work for you. I do have other options available, and if you fall into that category, reach out to me because there is options available. But for the most part, this is going to be this webinar specifically is going to be if you make under 105,000 a year. So as you can see, that's a big I mean, that's pretty big. You know, a lot of times I've heard of these programs that are available where the income requirements are like super low, and there is different income requirements. We'll kind of go over that. We'll touch base on that, on what are some of those income requirements and where you kind of want to be in the sweet spot, and we can find a way to make that work better for you. So let's go ahead and start with interest rate comparison. Okay. So that is one of the biggest things that clients ask. It's like, hey, why is this down payment assistance program being offered? What's the purpose? How is it that we're getting our down payment covered? So lenders will charge you a slightly higher interest rate to take advantage of these programs. Right now, with a 640 credit score, you can probably get like a 3% interest rate if you had your own down payment. Now, your own down payment is going to range anywhere between $7,000 to $10,000 to $12,000 to $13,000, depending on the purchase price of the house. So there is that small downside. You're going to have a slightly higher interest rate if you were to take advantage of one of these down payment assistance programs. So with the 640 credit score right now, if you're using your own down payment, you're going to have about a 3% interest rate. If you're taking advantage of down payment assistance, your rate is going to range from 3.5 to 4.1 or 3.5 to 4.75. So as you can see, those are still, historically speaking, very, very low rates. And I'll explain to you guys the difference as to why why you can get a higher rate. So the more payout you get, the higher the rate you get. So I'm going to show you guys here on my screen. I'm going to share a mortgage calculator. Okay. This mortgage calculator is going to give us an idea of what the impact the interest rate does. So that way you can kind of see and get an idea of how much you're really losing, because you are going to have a slightly higher monthly payment than if you were coming up with your own down payment. But I promise you that when everything is said and done, the difference in payment is just going to make sense. It's not going to make sense for you to put 10, 12 grand down. So let me share this with you guys real quick here. All right. So let me adjust the numbers here. Let's say a $250,000 house with 3% down payment. We're going to do FHA. And then let's do what your current interest rate would be if you were to pay for your own down payment, right? And then let's assume a $50 HOA. Okay. So $250,000 house right now, if you're paying your own down payment, and if we're doing FHA, let me get more specific on the numbers. So 3.5% of 250K is 8,750, 8,750. So this is your typical down payment, right? With a premium 640, 660 credit score, you can probably get a 3% interest rate right now with your own down payment. Now, with the down payment assistance, depending on what tier you go with, right? The lowest tier right now being a 3.5% rate. You can see that the monthly payment goes up $70 a month, $70 a month, but you're saving that $8,750. Let's say you went with the second tier, right? This is the one that I usually go with, and I'll explain that to you guys. It's a 4.125 right now, 1582, and I'll explain to you guys why you would want to take the better the higher interest rate. But that kind of goes to show you the amount of money that you would save by taking a slightly higher interest rate. Now, there are some qualifications when it comes to being able to qualify for these down payment assistance programs. One of the number one things is credit, right? You want to have at least a 650, 640 credit score. Now, if you don't have that credit score, that's okay. The lenders that I work with offer credit repair services. So if this is something that still works for you, I would still highly recommend submitting your application. But a 640 credit score is the minimum score requirement to qualify for the program. Now, there's also going to be income requirements, and we're going to go over that as well. Income requirements as far as how much money you make versus how much debt you have. So we're going to talk about the ratios and give you an idea of where you should be, so that way you can qualify for a house. And then we're going to also talk about work history, right? So in order to qualify, you need to have at least 2 years of work history. Now, here's the great news: is a lot of people have a misconception that you need to have 2 years at the current job. That's not the case, or that you have to have 2 years of consistent job history. I've helped out, parents that took some months off of work because they had a baby, or they took some time off and they're ready. They're already working again. They're working full time. You can have a lapse in employment history. That's one of the biggest misconceptions that I get. A lot of people, they'll be hesitant to switching jobs because, they've been working on their history and they hate their job. And I'm like, no, like, leave that place. You don't need to stay there. We just need to complete 2 years of job history. We can connect 2 years of history from previous jobs that you've had, even if you took a year off, 2 years off. Now, that doesn't apply if you are like a part-time employee. So if you're a part-time employee, let's say you've been working full-time and then now you're working part-time. Unfortunately, you would have to have 2 years consistent part-time employment history to be able to use part-time employment or a second job or commission-based income, or if you're self-employed. This only applies if you're getting paid a salary or an hourly wage. Okay. So if you're making, if you've been working and you took some time off and you're coming back, but now you're back to your 40 hours a week, you're a full-time employee, this will work. I've had clients in the past that were just recent graduates, right? They were going out, they were in high school. My youngest clients so far today have been 19 and 20. Recent graduates just graduated high school, been working for a year full time. We're actually able to use your school history, and it doesn't have to be college. It can be high school history. We can use your school history to complete your 2 year history that we need. So if you guys have kids that are in that 20, 21 year old group, and you guys want to kick them out of the house and you want them to get their own house, they have that option. They don't have to be working for a full 2 years, but obviously they need to make sure that they fall within the requirements that we need them to fall into to be able to qualify for these programs. These programs will work with U.S. residents, U.S. citizens, and DACA as well. If you are DACA, your credit score just has to be a little bit higher. It has to be around a 680. Unfortunately, these programs will not work with I-10, so it would be U.S. residents, citizens, and then DACA is okay, just a little bit higher requirement when it comes to your credit score. Now, let's talk about some of the disqualifiers, because that's a big one. What would prevent me from being able to use this? Now, aside from, there's some general disqualifiers when you're purchasing a house, just in general, that has nothing to do with these down payment assistance programs. But like, for example, if you just recently had a bankruptcy, foreclosure, short sale, you won't be able to take advantage of these. You had to wait whatever that time frame is. For the most part, a lot of these will start working after you've had one of those situations for 2 years. Like if you had a bankruptcy 2 years ago, you can already purchase a house. Usually there's that 2 year waiting period. Okay. Same with short sale and foreclosure is a little bit longer, but they're still, it's not. I think a lot of people think that it's typically 7 years. It's not 7 years. If you had a foreclosure or short sale, just reach out to me privately and we'll go over that. So that way we can kind of see what option would work best for you. And then one thing that I actually made a video on a couple months ago was like the typical stuff that would disqualify you from renting won't disqualify you from buying a house. So like evictions, collections, any of that, they won't disqualify. Felonies, misdemeanors, those won't disqualify you either, as long as the collections aren't affecting your credit score. Obviously, you need to have the credit score that we need to be able to help you out, as long as it's not affecting your debt to income ratios, right? But if you have collections, repos in the past, if you were in prison or you have a felony under your name, that does not disqualify you. You can still purchase a house and use these down payment assistance programs. I talked a little bit about income. So you want to make sure that so if you make under 105,000 a year, then you qualify for the programs I'm going to talk about. If you make over 105,000 a year, there's other options that I have for you, but we're going to talk about under 105. So that is one of the disqualifiers for these programs. Over 105,000 a year, we would have to go a different route. If you make under 58,000 a year, it's going to open up a little bit more options for you as far as the options interest rates. So if you're in a bracket of 58,000 a year to 105,000 a year, so let's say it's two of you guys applying on the loan, your interest rate's going to be just slightly higher. You'd be about a 4.125, so not much higher, you know, 0.5% higher. But definitely, if you make under 58,000 a year, let's say there's two applicants on the loan, right, and one person makes like 50,000, the other person makes 50,000, but one person can qualify for the mortgage alone. That would be a situation where I would recommend maybe just having the one person on the loan by themselves, so they can take advantage of the slightly lower interest rate. But if you're looking for a higher price point and you need to have both incomes on there, you're going to have to take the slight interest penalty. But once again, 4.125 is like super, super low, historically speaking, especially for down payment assistance. Alrighty. Debt to income. So we're going to talk about debt to income as well, and then we'll lead into that. But first, I'm going to show you something. So debt to income, you want to be at least 50% debt to income. So what do I mean by that? So your debt to income is going to be how much you make per month gross, right? So if your gross income per month is, let's say, $5,000 a month, all your debts, including the new mortgage payment, car payment, credit cards, can't exceed 50% of your gross income. Okay. So, and I'll explain how you can calculate that. I can show you guys a calculator that I use for clients when they're here doing consultations with me, to kind of give you an idea on how these, debt to incomes can get calculated. But for the most part, that's kind of a good rule of thumb. All righty. So now let's go ahead and get into mortgage payments and debt to income ratios. All righty, guys, this stuff's going to get real technical. If you guys have any questions, please raise your hand. Please, there's a little option to raise your hand, send me a message so that way I can slow down. All right, so let's go back to this screen that I had right here, right? So we're calculating a $250,000 house, okay? So what we're looking at right now is if this house, and then a lot of times, if you use like, what's that app, Zillow, like if you use Zillow, whenever you click on the houses, they're going to give you like an estimated mortgage payment. I promise you, next time, if you check one of those out, you'll see that they always have it calculated with 20% down. And right now we're just talking about the minimum down payment of 3 to 3.5%. Okay. But let's say a $250,000 house using one of these down payment assistance programs is $1,582 per month. And just as a rule of thumb, guys, like anytime you're calculating a purchase price, every 20 grand is about $100 a month, right? So if we take this $250,000 house and we go from 250 to 270, it jumps up. That was what, about 120 and some change. Okay. So just kind of have that as rule of thumb. Every 20 grand is about 120 per month. So if the mortgage on this is 1582, and we want to try to calculate what your potential qualification amount is and how that translates to on purchase price, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to know how much we qualify for and what purchase price we would be at. So this is calculator that I use. If you just Google search, debt to income calculator, it's very simple, but this will kind of make it easy for us. So let's say your mortgage payment is $1,600 a month, and you have a $400 car payment and maybe $200 in credit card debt. And we're taking the minimum monthly payments. A lot of you guys, every time I have a consultation, they're like, well, I pay more per month to pay them down. And that's great. But the good thing is we only have to use the minimum monthly payment that you use to pay for those. So in that calculation, what was it? So $1,600 mortgage, $400 car payment, $200 in credit cards. That's $2,200 a month in debt. In order for these programs to work for you, ideally 45% max debt to income ratio, that would be ideal, but we can always take it up a notch and go to 50%. There is still options there. But let's find out how much monthly, and this is just general information, guys. Don't take this and run with it and say, hey, I'm approved for this. We still have to run your application. We still need to look at everything as a whole. But let's say you make $5,000 a month gross. This is before Uncle Sam goes in there and takes your money away. Making $5,000 a month, combined income or single income, you can definitely qualify for a $250,000 house, right? Let's say you're like, hey, that's cool. How much higher can I go? And I'm just sticking to that 5,000 a month just to kind of have like an easy number to go off of. So the question is, how much more house can you qualify, right? Well, if it's 5,000 a month that you make, then you could potentially increase your monthly debt to about 2,500 bucks a month, right? So that would take us to the 50%. So if we go back to the mortgage calculator and we have an extra 300 bucks a month to use, remember that rule that we're talking about, every 20 grand is about 100 120 a month. So potentially your qualification amount could jump up, to 300K. So that kind of gives you guys an idea potentially of what you qualify for. So if you guys, when you have some time, or right now, if you guys want to follow along, just Google search debt to income calculator. The one that I'm specifically using is on Bankrate, BANKRAT.com. And you can plug in your numbers and play with the numbers and find out potentially what you would qualify for. So remember, add in all your minimum debt, add in all your, and then a proposed mortgage payment, right? So if we were looking at a $300,000 house, and right now the monthly payment for that is about 1884, then if you're like, hey, that's too much house for me, let's say I wanted to look at a $250,000 house, subtract about $100 $110 a month for every 20 grand. Or obviously on the flip side, if you wanted to go up 350, you can do that. Now that brings me up to another thing: is what is the max that you can qualify for? Let's say you're somebody that you make good money, but you have, all your money's been kind of going through to student loans, or or whatnot. You just don't have the down payment available to buy, and you want to try to get a nice house. There really is no limit on the purchase price of the house as long as you don't have the income limit. And that only applies for conventional financing versus FHA. FHA, you're going to be capped at around 344. So still, I mean, let's just say if you were going FHA, 344,000, like that's really, really, that's a good purchase price. That's like a great house. For the most part, a lot of the times that clients that I work with are, let me stop sharing my screen so you guys don't see my password. A lot of times, most of the clients that I'm working with, they're in that 250 to 350 price range, right? So for me, that's a very comfortable price range. That's a lot of the times, the price range that I'm looking in different areas, Glendale, Peoria, Avondale, Litchfield Park, Buckeye. You can find some cool stuff in that price range. And obviously, if you're looking for something cheaper, if you're like, hey, I want to spend as little as possible, then, obviously just reduce your purchase price as much as possible. Give me a second here. Perfect. So let's find out potentially what you guys could be finding in that price range, right? So I'm going to share my screen again with you guys. So this is my internal. You guys are getting an inside scoop. This is some top secret stuff. This is what real estate agents use to look up your houses. But this is also the same. This is the same data that like Zillow and all these other companies use to pull from. At the end of the day, they all pull from our realtor specific MLS, right? So you guys, let's say you guys are looking for a house, and you're like, well, what can we get in that price range? 250 to 300. For the most part, most people try to stick into the newer communities. They try to stick in like the houses built in the 2000s. So if I was to wrap kind of that, let's go ahead and select a year, say 2005, and let's do max price of 300K. So as of right now, active listings on the market up to $300,000. There's, in this general area that I drew right here, 162 listings. So we take it down to 250, right? I have a client that's looking in that price range right now. It's a perfect example. 29 active listings. As you can see, the amount of listings does get reduced because obviously at a lower price point. Right now, the average price point in Arizona is 280,000, somewhere around in that ballpark, right? But let's say you guys are like, hey, Rio, I want to go lower. What's the lowest price that I can probably get for a newer house? Without going all the way west to Buckeye, which there's nothing wrong with Buckeye. Buckeye is a great area. It's a good price. 220. So that really knocks us down to 2 active listings. So what I would say, if you guys are considering a house kind of budget for a purchase price of 220 and above. Because if we go below 220, if you're looking for a newer house, less maintenance issues, you're not going to find a lot of options. The only two options that I was able to find right now is in El Mirage and Surprise. So just kind of consider that. If you're when we're looking at the purchase price, throw this into your potential qualification amount, right? So if we're looking at a $220,000 house, which is ideally, you really don't want to be shopping lower than that price point right now. They are out there, but you're going to have to look somewhere like West Phoenix, South Phoenix, Buckeye, Maricopa, which there's nothing wrong with Maricopa, but so just to kind of be like in town, you really want to be in a price point of at least 220,000 to get something decent minimum. But a $220,000 house right now, your mortgage would be about $1,400 a month. And remember, kind of keeping in mind what we were talking about with the interest rates. The interest rate right now for 4.125 is great. If you have your own down payment, if you have your own 3.5%, you can get a premium rate right now with the 660 credit score. Your interest rate will drop to a 3% and you'll save about $140 a month. But the difference obviously is the down payment. Now let's talk about how you can essentially purchase a house with zero down, because that is one of the biggest questions that I get asked too when I put these ads out. It's like, hey, this is just clickbait, or is this somebody said bait and switch? No, it's not. There is, and I have helped out clients in the past purchase a house with just paying for their inspection, which an inspection is optional. So at that point, if you want to pay for an inspection, you can. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But I would 100% recommend doing it. And the way this is done, right? Let me get out of the screen so you guys can see my mug. So the way this is done is it's going to be dependent on the house. Now, you're not restricted to locations, which is great. I get that question a lot. Is this in certain areas? No, this is open to the entire Maricopa County, not Maricopa City, Maricopa County. So there is no limitations on where you're going to buy. However, if you're wanting to buy a house with the absolute minimum amount of money possible or zero money, you're going to want to take advantage of obviously your down payment assistance program. And then also you're going to want to look at houses that have been on the market for at least 2 weeks, And I'll explain that. Aside from your down payment, I have clients that come to me and they're like, hey, I've been saving for my down payment. I'm having a hard time saving for my down payment. But then there's also closing costs that you need to worry about. Closing costs is anywhere between $5,000 to $6,000, right? And closing costs, there's a lot of different things that go into the term closing costs, and I have made a video on that to explain that in further detail. But that's usually a good rule of thumb, right? $5,000 to $6,000 is what you should expect to pay for closing costs. However, if you're looking at houses that have been on the market for a couple weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, it's a very high probability that we can get the seller to cover all of those closing costs. And that has happened multiple times. This isn't like a unicorn. I can't guarantee it obviously because every situation is different, but it is very common if a house has been on the market for a couple weeks to have the seller pay for your closing costs. And that could be for a lot of different reasons. It could be just because maybe it needs a carpet cleaning. Maybe I don't know, people just don't like the location. There's a lot of different reasons why. Maybe it's overpriced and then finally they drop the price and they're ready to pay for closing costs. There's a lot of different reasons and a lot of different scenarios where we can get those closing costs covered. So if we have your down payment covered and you have your closing costs covered, what else do you have left to pay? The only other thing that you have left to pay is your appraisal, which is $500, and your inspection, which is $350, which is optional. I recommend it, but it's optional. The appraisal, all right now, I'm covering that with myself and my lender. So that's already covered, right? So this is how we come across the zero down, okay? So your down payment is going to be covered. Your closing costs, we have to get the seller to cover that. You have to look for a house that's been on the market a little bit longer. And the appraisal will be covered by myself and my lender. The only thing that you would have to worry about is your inspection, just $350 to $400, depending on the size of the house. But the inspection is optional. Once again, I do recommend and highly recommend using that. I think I've only sold one house that had an inspection done. So definitely take advantage of the inspection. Now, if you're looking for houses that are move-in ready, right? And this is where we're going to talk a little bit more about the interest rates and how you can use bigger or higher tiers. So if you're looking for houses that are move-in ready, that are like in high demand, they got pools, they got new fresh countertops, they have new, everything, pool, everything, just a fresh, clean, remodeled home, right? Let's say that's your dream. You're like, hey, I don't want to look for a house that's been on the market for 2 or 3 weeks. You're still going to get your down payment covered. However, where it's going to get a little bit more difficult is your closing costs. A seller that just came on the market isn't going to want to pay for those $5,000 in closing costs because they're going to hold off and get an offer that's not going to ask for those closing costs. If the house is priced right and if it looks good, they will get offers where the closing costs will be covered by the buyer. So then you as a buyer, there is an option where you can take a higher payout of down payment assistance where it's going to cover a big majority of those closing costs. So not only do we have your entire down payment covered, which is whatever that, let's just use a 200 let's just use 300,000. Just that's a cool number. So $300,000 house, and the minimum down payment is 3.5%. So not only are you getting your entire $10,500 down payment covered, you can take a higher payout that covers an additional 1.5% to be able to apply towards your closing costs. So on a $300,000 house, then the additional credit you would have to apply towards closing costs is $4,500. So you pretty much almost have your entire closing costs covered at that point, even with these down payment assistance programs. However, it's going to be at the cost of a slightly higher interest rate. So I'm going to share you guys, my screen with you guys again so you can see what that translates to in monthly payments. Right now, as of today, and this could change tomorrow, interest rates are not adjustable rates. This isn't the stuff that happened back in 2008. The rates do change and fluctuate up until the point that you get it locked in. And the only way you can lock in your rate is once you're already out of underwriting. It's rare that it changes, but it happens where you can be under contract and the rate goes up or goes down. But right now, with that scenario that we were just talking about, where you're getting your entire down payment covered plus an additional 1.5% to apply towards your closing costs, the interest rate for that right now is 4.75. So if you're in the situation where you're okay with the higher monthly payment because you want to put your best foot forward and you want to make an offer on a house and you want to make sure that closing cost isn't holding you back, this would be the best way to do it on a purchase price of $300,000. Now, obviously, the payment's going to reflect that because you're getting a whole another $4,500, in closing cost assistance. If you were to take the middle tier, which is the one that I was talking about earlier, which is my favorite one, the 4.125 interest rate, your monthly payment for that same house is $1,884, so it's $110 cheaper, and then you're still going to get like $1,500 to apply towards your closing costs. So at that point, if you were making an offer on a house that has multiple offers and you want to be competitive, it is good to have some money saved up because you want to have some money saved up to be competitive if you're looking at houses that are move-in ready and if you're looking at houses that are nice and sparkly and clean. Right. So you have options. I don't want you to think that you're going to be stuck looking at houses that are ugly and outdated. I mean, that's obviously if you want to take the lowest possible monthly payment where you're getting the least payout. And then we're relying on the seller to pay for your closing costs. But if you're in a situation where you're like, hey, I'm cool with getting a slightly higher interest rate, I just want to make sure that I'm putting myself in the best position possible when I'm making offers. It's still possible. You're maybe going to have like $1,500 of your own out-of-pocket expenses. Okay, guys. So let's go ahead and open it up for a Q&A, guys. Pretty much went over the program. Actually, last thing. What is the downside of the program, right? Because most people ask that. I've been talking about that pretty much the entire time, the slightly higher interest rate. That's going to be one of the biggest downsides. Your monthly payment's going to be about $100 to $150 higher per month than if you were paying for your own $8,000, $10,000, $12,000 down payment. And then the time. You want to be in the house for at least 3 years. You can sell before that time frame, and it's prorated. So whatever amount you received, if you sell before 3 years are over, you would have to pay that back. So let's say you received $10,000 in down payment assistance, and you moved into the house, you don't like it, and you've been there, a year and a half. When you sell, half of that $5,000 you would have to pay out of your proceeds back to the fund. But as long as you've been there for 3 years, it is 100% forgiven, which is awesome. I mean, just basically, free money. And after 3 years, you refinance if the interest rates are low enough. If not, you keep whatever interest rate you had. But let's open it up for a Q&A, guys. What questions do you guys have for me? Let's see. We got a couple of you guys in here for the most part. A lot of you guys stuck through. I think I only saw 2 people drop off. You guys type in some questions for me. Let's get your questions answered. I hope this all kind of makes sense too. I know it's a lot of technical jargon, but I promise you, once we get your application submitted, once you're in the process of buying, it will all make sense. I see a lot of you guys in here. Anybody have any questions? Type it up. This is the perfect time to do it. I'm checking to make sure that I have my chat feature turned on. Yeah, you guys are on there. There we go. What lenders do you work for? I don't work for any lenders. Lenders work for me. I have a lot of different lenders that I use, but my primary lender that I work with is Nova Home Loans. They're the biggest lender in Arizona. Now, these programs are available with all different types of lenders and realtors. This isn't something that just like, hey guys, I'm the only one that can give this to you. Use me. Absolutely not. The reason I do these webinars is to gain your trust, so that way you can trust me in the process of helping you buy a house. And the thing with these interest rates, everything that I was talking about, interest rates and all this stuff, all this junk, that's the same across the board for all lenders. Doesn't matter what lender it is, they all have to offer the same exact interest rate at the same time when you take advantage of these down payment assistance programs. What do I do to get started? To get started, we're gonna go ahead. I'll follow up with an email, and we'll go ahead and get your application submitted. I promise you, if your credit score is over 640, and when we went through the debt to income calculator, it all made sense, and you're below that 50% debt to income, you will qualify. It's just a matter of getting your pre-qualification ironed out, getting all the details, your docs, and everything submitted. But we will definitely, I'll reach out to you so that way you can submit your application. Thank you, Samantha. Hope that answered. So Samantha, yeah, same thing. Where do we fill out the application? I'll follow up with you as well. I don't know who the first one that asked it was, just double A. I don't know who that is, but if you can, just give me a heads up. Let me know what your real name is, so that way I can directly reach out to you to get that application submitted. Let's see, Valeria, does this program only apply for first-time buyers? No. Well, Valeria, to answer your question, it is only for your primary residence, but you don't have to be a first-time home buyer. Great question. I should have brought that up. No, you don't have to be a first-time home buyer, and you can own a current home and still use these programs, which is great. A lot of people don't know that. So you just can't purchase a new home as an investment with these programs. But if you're planning to rent your current home as an investment and buy another home, you can use these programs to cover your down payment on the new house. Great question. Thank you so much for that one. Crystal, so my husband needed to get a credit card. To his credit, how long will it take for his credit to accumulate? 640. Hey, Crystal, that's going to be a little bit more specific as far as credit goes, time frame, and all that good stuff. If somebody already gave you the recommendation to open up a credit card to build your credit, usually that's like a 6-month plan. For the most part, like if your credit is just low because of high utilization, or you have collections, those are usually a lot quicker because you can either just pay down your debt. And I say just pay down. I know it's tough to just pay credit cards down, right? But if you have high utilization, it's really easy to jump your credit score up like 60, 80 points. It's just a matter of paying those credit cards down to be under 30%. And then if you have stuff in collections, it would be a matter of removing those. And there's ways where my lenders can do a rapid rescore within 3 to 5 days. So if you have the funds available and you have maxed out credit cards and your score is like at a 580, I promise you that you can jump your score really quickly and we can be shopping for a house next week. But if you're having to build credit because you don't have any credit and somebody's recommended to you to open up a new credit card to build credit, that's usually going to be a longer plan. It's going to be about a 6-month plan. But still, I mean, if you haven't actually had a lender submit an application, sometimes you think your score is lower than what it is. And, it definitely would be a good idea to submit an application so that way you can get it directly from the source, from the lender. Mike, question. I got a house that needs work. Is there a program to help fix it? Mike, sorry, no, I don't have this. This is only a program that applies to if you're in the process of wanting to buy the house. If you do own a home and you want to do repairs on it, you can do a home equity line of credit if your credit score meets the minimum requirements for whatever bank you go with. And then also your equity has to have, for the most part, at least 20% equity to be able to do those home equity lines of credit. But as far as the programs that I was talking about today, unfortunately, none of those will apply or work to renovate your current house. Let me make sure I'm answering all these questions, guys. Give me a second. Great turnout. Thank you guys for sticking out. For the most part, I would say 90% of you guys stuck through the whole thing and answered the Q&As. I love it. Thank you so much. How long does it take to get qualified? If you have all the right stuff, if your credit's solid and your income looks solid, I can get you pre-qualified today, and we can be shopping for houses tomorrow. Double A, I got to get your name, man. I don't know who you are, but send me a direct message. You guys have my information through email. Reply to my email so that way I know which one of you guys are interested in applying and taking advantage of these programs. But please ask these questions because it sounds like I'm answering a lot of a lot of the questions that a lot of other people have. Let's see. Um, so how much money should someone have saved before searching for homes under these programs? I kind of went into it a little bit where in some cases you can literally do it with just paying for your inspection. Now, when you go under contract on a house, you do have to put an initial earnest deposit. Now, if we were able to get all your closing costs covered from the seller or the down payment assistance program, you're going to get that $1,000 right back. So I would say just to have, and this is obviously just a check or two, just to be safe, right? If you're in the situation where right now you don't have the money, available to be competitive and pay for your own closing costs, but you do have the room to increase the interest rate to get more payout on the down payment assistance, I would say save like $1,500, just to be safe. But at the end of the day, like if we were to get all your closing costs covered from the seller and the down payment covered your entire down payment, you're gonna walk away with just paying like $350 for your inspection because you'll get the $1,000 back at closing. Somebody asked, Mike, if I buy a house and it needs work, is there a program to help get it fixed? There is an FHA 203K program that works for distressed properties. Those won't work with down payment assistance, though, unfortunately, Mike. So that wouldn't be an option if you're taking advantage of these programs. But there is loan programs, and please send me an email, reach out to me if you want to get more questions answered on that. But there are loan programs if you're buying distressed properties that would work. However, a lot of times in my experience, when I have clients that are needing these programs, they're going to get beat out by cash investors a lot. It's rare. It's not a very commonly used program because as an investor or as somebody that's selling a distressed property, I'm going to try to go with somebody that's offering cash or hard money because that's almost guaranteed sale versus using some of these programs to purchase the house, Mike. So there are options available, and we can definitely go over that with you. But these programs, down payment assistance programs, would not work for purchasing a house that's in a distressed condition that needs repairs done to it. Vicky, are these programs available for out-of-state residents? Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have to. So, like out of state, I guess that would be a tougher question. Like out of state in the sense that you're going to buy and you're going to live here. Yes, but if you're buying as an investment here, no. It has to be your primary residence that you're going to be buying to use the down payment assistance programs. I hope that answers your question. Yes, absolutely. Ideally, this is why this webinar is here, guys. You guys can apply without coming into the office, 100%. I'll have my lender send an application to you. So this meeting that I did right now with you guys, going over this information, the credit score requirements, the debt to income ratios. This basically knocks out the first part of my consultation that I do with clients. After this, the next step normally is I have them go home. I say, hey, think about it. If you think what I said sounds good to you, then let me know. I'll have my lender email you an application. You fill out the application. We iron out all your details, right? You submit your income docs, paycheck stubs, W-2s. If you're self-employed or a 1099 employee, we'll need your taxes as well. But that will all get handled. And then finally, when we have your pre-qualification ironed out, ready to go, then we will set up a time to meet in person. So that way we can explain the offer process. That's a completely different video, and that would have been too long to put into this. But absolutely, you can apply remotely. I would recommend it during these times to do that. And please respond to my messages or emails, or I'll reach out to you so that way we can get you applied. Can you help my home? Yeah, absolutely. I can help you purchase a new home and sell your current one. That's not a problem. I'm a real estate agent that helps you sell and buy. If the question was for new build, these programs do work for new builds as well. So I've helped out. Actually, one of the clients in the screenshots was a new build client that was able to take advantage of that. Yeah, absolutely, Samantha. I can help you out with that. No problem. Great question, Andrea. So if two people apply on the application and you want to get a lower rate, does the other person applying have to have the low? Yeah. So you're gonna take the lowest rate of the two applicants. That's a great question. So let's say you have phenomenal credit. Like when I bought my house, my wife knows I had phenomenal credit. She had like a 700 credit score, and then I had like a 550. And unfortunately, I had to raise my score up to meet her score, so that way we can buy. They will take the lowest of the two. It's not like when you buy a car. When you buy a car, they average out the two scores. So if there is a weak link in the co-application, in that case, it was me. I had to raise my score in order to be able to meet the score that my wife had, so we can qualify for the down payment. Back then, when I bought my house 5 years ago, the minimum requirement was like a 700, so they've actually relaxed the requirements a little bit. I see a lot of you guys on here, which is great. A lot of you guys stuck out. I think the ones that left were the ones that were like, all right, this guy's FOS, let's get out of here. So a lot of you guys have actually stayed on board, and which leads me to believe that a lot of you guys are interested in applying, which is great. It's exactly why I did this webinar, and I'm glad that it definitely helped get a lot of you guys informed. If anybody looks like the last person that asked a question, perfect question. So, would you recommend having two people apply or just individually? It depends. Kind of when we were talking about the income requirements. So, if you can qualify for the house that you're looking for, and let's say you have two people, one person makes 50 grand a year, the other person makes 30, right? If the person that makes $50,000 a year makes enough to qualify for the house that you're looking for, I would recommend just having it on one application because you will take advantage of more options. If you make over 58,000 a year, you can still take advantage of the down payment assistance programs. It's just going to be at a slight penalty of a higher interest rate, but not by much, like 0.5%. So that's something that we'll work on. We'll kind of iron out the details just to make sure that we kind of get you in the right place. At the end of the day, if it's a married couple or not, doesn't matter. But if it's a couple that's buying a house and only one goes on the application, you both can take legal ownership of the house. You both can be on title and take ownership of the house together. It would just the loan itself would just fall under one person's responsibility. Yeah, I can help buy with condos as well. Absolutely. Now, condos are going to be a little bit tricky because the condo has to qualify for FHA financing. So if a condo doesn't apply for, doesn't qualify or doesn't isn't FHA approved, it's going to be really tough because then you would have to qualify for conventional financing. But then the problem is when it's conventional financing, there's like a special list that this condo has to be on. So it does get tough to be able to use condos with the down payment assistance programs. The condo has to be FHA eligible. So it is possible, and I've helped out clients. I just had a call from a client that I helped out purchase a condo last year. Now she has two puppies and she wants to purchase a house with a big yard. She purchased her condo with a down payment assistance program, and it was FHA eligible. So it would be a little bit tougher, but it is 100% possible to get a condo with these programs. Alrighty, guys. It looks like the questions kind of died down. So if you guys are interested in applying for a mortgage, if you guys would like to go ahead and get the ball rolling and submit your application, and this can all be done remotely. You guys don't have to come into the office. I'm going to go ahead and follow up with you guys. I see a lot of you guys are still hanging out in here. So I'll reach out to you guys individually and we'll get the application submitted. So that way, actually, let me screenshot who's still here with me right now. Give me a second, guys. Oh, I saw one drop off. Don't be scared. One of you guys dropped off. I said, no, not me. Don't reach out to me. Oh, that's funny. It's all right. I swear I'm nice in person too. Cool, guys. So I'm gonna reach out to you guys. If you guys want to submit an application, cool. Let's get the ball rolling. Let's get you into a home this year. Take advantage of these low interest rates. If you have any additional questions, please do not hesitate to ask. My phone number is 602-872-0267. But you guys have that in email format. If you guys have been getting my automatic emails, my automatic text messages, just reply to those. So that way you can give me a heads up. That way I don't have to go and hunt your emails down. That way I know, hey, this person wants to apply. They're ready to go. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate every one of you. Please share this with anybody that's thinking about buying a house. I'm going to try to host these every Friday. There's a fly in here. I'm going to try to host these every Friday so that way I can get more and more people helped in this year. But please let them know about me. Have them follow my Instagram. You guys all found my page on Instagram, rio.vidrio. And thank you so much for joining me. Take care, guys, and have a good one. Please reach out to me if you want to apply so that way it makes it easier for me. Thank you.